My part will be really short. I said I'll finish in 15 minutes because I'm setting the stage. So our next two speakers will actually continue on the notes, or rather on the areas of statelessness, undocumented population. But because for me, I'm actually very interested, and thank you for giving the opportunity to share with everyone the plight of children in Sabah. I don't have numbers, but it is really something that I think all of us have close to our heart, whether it's our own children, our families and all that. So it's just something that we realize in Sabah, everybody takes for granted. Everyone here loves children. I know that. It's just that, have we ever thought what happens to them in the future? So this is just to give some background. Also to what UNICEF is doing in Sabah, because I get asked that a lot as well, because we are not just collecting donation on the street. Yeah, I keep getting like people say, UNICEF, oh yeah, those people at the banks and the shops and all that. Just to say they don't actually work directly for UNICEF, they are actually from agency. And also the other thing is, a lot of people here don't know what is UNICEF. Actually, how many of you here know what's UNICEF? See, less than half actually. Well, thank you for that, at least you know. But here I'm going to talk a little bit about, in Sabah, is actually our state safe? So then I won't go into all the issues, but because we are going to transition into those children who are left behind, the marginalized, because they are non-documented. So introduction, UNICEF is part of the UN and it's for children affairs, yeah, and children is under 18 as defined by the child rights. So I just want to give an example of, if let's say here in Sabah, do you think it's safe for a 10-year-old to work anywhere by themselves? Right? So what will happen to them? They don't go out, right? They just sit home and play on their phone. So now we are actually working and trying to get stakeholders, which is why I'm very happy for this opportunity. How can we all work together to make Sabah State, first KK lah, we're all here, right? A safe space for children everywhere. And that's, the reality is traffic, pollution, crime, etc. So how do we actually work together? Because it doesn't have to be this way, right? Yeah, and we have actually this child-friendly city that is already operating in 100 countries that make it somewhere where we can aspire to lah. So this is actually following on Conventions on the Rights of the Child, the CRC. So this area is actually allowing children a safe space to grow, to learn, to play, and also flourish with dignity. And that's where the heartache for some of us comes in. Not every child is able to access many things. And I think my other speakers will speak on that later. So I'm just starting it off on the rights of a child. Okay? So a child-friendly city is where everyone from the town council to all, even the architects and the population who lives there, actually make it a safe space for children. And these are the 4 areas that we are actually targeting to realize through child-friendly city. No discrimination. Decisions are made on the best interest of the child. They have the right to life, survival, and development. Access, yeah? And that would include health, right? Survival is very important. Health is very important for survival, and also respect for their wishes. Because now we realize town councils plan things without taking into consideration best interest of the child and what they actually would like to have. So in Malaysia, we already have one, PJ. And I must say, the negotiation for child-friendly city in Sabah started the same time as with PJ. They have already achieved that status, and Sarawak last year signed 5 MOU to achieve child-friendly status. And Sabah, we are still starting to talk. So DBKK mayor actually agreed 2 years ago, but you know, we've changed mayor again now. So it's like back to the talking board. So why is it important to put children first? I'm sure we all agree children are the next generation, isn't it? They are our legacy. They're going to inherit the world as we are passing to them. So it would be really good if they could start to appreciate, to learn, and have access to better health and well-being as well as learning. And this is what we would later hear. Not every child is so fortunate lah. Yeah, okay. So why is it actually important we feel that a city is child-friendly? Because it will attract business. Because child-friendly city actually is an international recognition, and some big businesses that partners with UN actually like to invest in places where there is a child-friendly city recognition. And families would feel safer, property values actually would be boosted, and also we feel that if everybody work together to make the city a safe space, there'll be less crime. Right? I mean, it's like a automatic benefit, and reduce healthcare because the access will be more on prevention, right? But prevention is better than treatment, okay? So just to say, children are more vulnerable. We can walk anywhere. We are more aware, right? We know to protect ourselves more than children. So one of the things that we would actually like is children to participate more, to learn more, so that they are less vulnerable. And how do we make this happen is infrastructure. I don't know how many of you here are involved in town planning, policy decisions, but these are some of the areas. We have started talking to various ministries in Sabah, agencies, how to make it more conducive for children so that the living spaces are designed for reduced danger. They are more accessible. Especially, I don't know whether you all know, when we were doing the Borneo Marathon, we did an accessibility study for people in wheelchair in the stadium of Likas, and it's totally 30 over place, not very accessible. So thank you to also Dato Heng and his team. We tried, but because director of Kinabalu Running Club, right? But still, the infrastructure was never really improved. So if you go to the stadium, you realize that it's not accessible for wheelchair users and all that, and that's something that we are still fighting for. But it involves a lot of council, a lot of, like stadium is under a different agency, things like that. So it's like good if everybody can actually work together. Then it would be also like having child-friendly regulations and policy. Some people think like UNICEF is very lucky. It's 6 months maternity leave and 3 months paternity leave for staff of UN. So, okay, that is just something that we recognize. That is called family-friendly policies. You know what I mean? That's at the policy level, and I'll share that, okay? So, town planning is something that we are struggling with. So, for example, like in PJ, they have the first inclusive playground in Malaysia, but that was funded by Samdabi. So it's again, we have to find ways to fund it, that if the council can't, then we work together in fundraising, and we work also with local businesses, apart from just children and family, because local businesses are some of the ones that we can turn to for funding, and maybe for what you call influencing and advocating for a safer place for families, right? So of course you all know about CSR and all that. We can get them to organize events and all that. Anybody is interested, I'm happy to share this slide later, check with Rachel. Yeah, okay. So all this is actually, now we have this big thing on ESG, you all know. Environment, social, governance thing that big companies have to report to. So we are actually using that as a reason for them to participate. And they will if there is something that they get a benefit or is penalized. So that's the only way lah. So child-friendly city, the local council are the one who act, not anyone else. They are the one to convene everybody together, and UNICEF will help out in technical support, capacity building, like training for the stakeholders involved. Okay. The other thing which is very lacking in Malaysia, child participation. So we have started last year at Parliament level, one whole day where children voices was heard by the MPs. We had an exhibition for 2 days. So it's like starting to let members of Parliament realize that sometimes they have to listen to children, because they are now millions of the population, right? Soon they are going to be the voting population as well and all that. So, it's something that everybody needs to be aware. Start young, start right. Yep. So, this is the area that it's really hot off the press. We just finished our UNICEF program meeting yesterday, and this is our plan for the next few years. We already have air quality monitoring in 5 schools, because we talk about pollution, right? One of the pollution that everyone is affected, what everyone has to breathe, isn't it? So air pollution, we have sensors in 5 schools working with the Environment Protection Department, EPD, and we will continue that, and we are going to go into schools through the in Sabah Environment Education Network and all that. So that's one area we will do. So you see, blue is what we have done, but on this side is what we've agreed we will work on. So nutrition, we started in Keningau area. We're going to expand more, do more research, and maybe expand it to Kudat. Social behavior change. I'm not sure how many of you all know. Have you all heard of social behavior change? Elsa? So we had our first regional SBC conference in SICC last year, October. People came from about 8 countries. It was quite interesting. It's the first in Malaysia. It was held in Sabah. So social behavior change, we found that something very new. But like we have behavioral insights, methods, nudge. Not sure you other have adult, but it's quite interesting to know. Like, because changing behavior now is something we lack in Sabah. Okay, like, you know, obesity is very high here. I can see some doctors here, so you know, like diabetes, you know, like a lot of things. And you know that for children, malnutrition in Sabah is one of the highest state for stunting. So now the nutrition department is going to start a program so that they can measure the height of the children, because apparently Sabah children are one of the shortest. Yeah, so the nutrition department is going by height. Like, I mean, when they measure, that's why we do what we call the growth monitoring. Right? It's important on height, not just weight. Yeah. And all that, we actually will use social behavior change, because we realize that without changing behavior and mindset, it's not easy to change things, right? I mean, it's actually like social norms that we need to change. Disability is another area which we have not done so much, but this year we are just going to continue more also on research and mapping. Adolescent development and participation, again, we focus a lot on federal. We have raised now young leaders that like even the MPs was quite impressed. After 1 year training, they were able to exchange dialogue, you know, like question, answers and all that. So we're going to slowly bring it in to Sabah, but we felt that Sabah youth may not be ready to voice opinion. We are looking more at skills building first, you know, lay the groundwork first. And then 2 of our young leaders that has sort of graduated are from Sabah out of the 14. So we'll see how we can involve more Sabah youth. So health, this is something that we are looking at for mental health for adolescents. So it's again going to be new in Sabah, and we are looking for partnership here. So if anyone here knows anyone who's interested in adolescent mental health, please let us know, let me know, okay? So communications, we are now partnering with Sabah Journalism Association, because we realize that ethical reporting is something new. So there's somewhere that we want to start ethical reporting about children, especially children who have been abused in detention, etc. Those are the areas we will start with. Education, we have the Lima platform. I'm not sure how many people here have heard. During COVID, UNICEF funded the development of an online teaching portal called the Lima, and that has done very well, but now we are adding to the modules, and we are seeing how to also extend these online classes to children in detention, and also to those who are not able to attend national schools. But of course, we have some challenges, which is, do they have the device and do they have the access? And I'm sure some of you have experienced. Child marriage is back on our flagship, because it was started during, remember, there was a Ministry of Native Affairs. We started a research there, and then the ministry was no longer there, so we stopped, but we are bringing that back, reducing child marriage, because Sabah also has high statistics of reported underage marriage. So if we times more that is unreported, that's actually really very high. I mean, in a Malaysian context. Yeah? And one thing new we are bringing is positive parenting. We found that from going around all our visits, a lot of the areas that children are facing now is because the parents haven't been paying attention. So now we are looking at positive parenting so that it's actually like a better group to target so that their children will benefit. Okay? Justice is actually more on the federal side, and we are doing a lot of research and advocacy on that. And gender, we found that also in Sabah, there has been not so much focus on gender transformation, gender equity, not equality, things like that. So we are going to run some workshops so that there's more awareness. And this is a big one, that's why you see this bigger than the rest. This is at state level. So we are looking at social policy, Sabah Child Wellbeing Index. We've been talking to a lot of agencies, including the health department, the welfare department, women's affairs, social services. So we realized that child well-being is not measured in Sabah. So Sarawak has embarked, and so because we are already starting work with Sarawak, we are just thinking to bring in the model. It's not exactly the same, but at least we have something to base on, and we can also use that here to measure. So business for a result is another area that is new. How do we then help support a lot of these targets on child rights? It's not only about money, but it's about working together. So we have a program now called Business for Result, and we will start creating databases and reaching out to them to involve them in our dialogue, because we want it to be participatory, not pushed down, but from everybody's contribution and ideas. Okay? And one thing just to say, there's been a lot of investment in Sabah from EU as well. I'm not sure you all have heard of some of the programs. In the past, there has been quite a lot of rural programs as well. So they are going to continue, but this year they are interested in the plantation area. So the better situation, looking at how to increase support, especially to the children in plantation, to reduce child labor, child abuse, and all that. So that's quite good news. Okay, so I'm almost finished. The Child Wellbeing Index is something we actually want to ask everyone to help us think. What do you think is well-being? Because well-being, a lot of people think they hear the word, it's just, like health, right? But actually, no. Deprivation, that means what are they not getting, is also an area that we need to look at, because if they don't have that, like internet data, not only like chance to learn, chance to help, but there are a lot of, we call poverty in different areas, right? Even justice and all that. So yeah, so please help us, okay? One thing I just want to highlight, because I keep getting asked, how come you all don't give milk lah, you don't give this, you don't give that? It's because Malaysia is high middle income country. So our agreement with the government of Malaysia is that we do policy recommendation through research, evidence-based, and the second thing is capacity building, starting with government first. So we do a lot of things, we give a lot of funds, but you don't see it so much because it's at a very high level. So now Sabah, I'm very happy, this is the first time we're going to have a Sabah action plan, and it will be just focus on Sabah with a specific budget for Sabah, if you know what I mean. Rather than trying to have a big cake, so now we have a Sabah cake. Last time I have to fight for a national cake, all right? So that's it. And one thing that I'd like to say before I pass on to Marianne next, is it? It's just that when we talk about children, what you can see here, don't you think it's only for Malaysian children? Because councils, who did they provide services and access to? Will be more Sabahans, right? I talked to health department, again, same thing. Access is more to Sabahans, and if not, they have to pay a very high fee and all that. So that's why one of the biggest challenge we have in Sabah all these years, what about the marginalized, left behind, invisible, there are so many names for them. Those children without documentation. It does not mean that they are non-Sabahan, because some of them actually have Malaysian parents. But for one reason or another, which Marianne will elaborate on, they don't have proper document. So for us, we are actually trying to work very, very hard in Sabah, but we want to work within government context, because we are supporting the government. So we are always also constantly in contact to make sure that we are actually helping and supporting. So I really hope that everyone also can share, because we are also very mindful of what are the areas that's confidential and what are the areas that we feel we can actually actively together work on. Yeah? Okay, thanks.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Anne Baltazar. I think Chloe has invited me multiple times to come here, and finally David managed to get me here. Sorry, Chloe. But then, so I'm finally here today. Thanks so much for taking time to listen to what we have to say today. So basically, Chloe. So just to introduce a bit who ANAK is. So ANAK, why I picked the word ANAK is because it's the word child in 3 languages. Do you know what language? Malay. So Malaysians. Who else? Philippines as well. In Filipino, it's also ANAK. What else? Indonesian. So these 3 children make up. These three make up most of the children that we serve as ANAK. So it also means to say that ANAK, a child is. I feel it's. Why do we discriminate children? Because a child is a child, and a child is a child of. I feel child is a child of all. Yeah. So that's why we pick ANAK. Okay. So ANAK is actually made up of all of us, the members so far. We are either children of migrants, or stateless ourselves, or undocumented ourselves. So sometimes when people think about stateless persons, they think of somebody who looks very different from them. But you will be very surprised to see our people, our members, and to see how similar they look to each and every one of us. Even when we were in the Parliament Select Committee recently, we were invited because of the Federal Constitution Amendment. They were also surprised who the stateless person was in the room. So they look like each and every one of us, and I know there are stateless persons here as well. So thank you so much for coming. What we do mostly is we do paralegal assistance. So we help with the application of citizenship, especially if all of those in our support group at the moment are actually children of one citizen parent. And all of them actually have similar cases where father citizen, mother non-citizen, but there's no legal marriage. So our law actually it's actually moral policing. So if you're not married, you're not legally married. So sometimes it's kawin kampung. They're married, but then they live very far in the village, and they didn't go through, because we do have a Mahkamah Anak Negeri, but they didn't go through even that process. And they're not legally married in the eyes of the country, or the eyes, yeah. So because of that, they became stateless. And a lot of these stateless young people that we work with, they're actually very, very good students. 8As, 6As, they're like really good. They were able to go to school. Thankfully, we have really good teachers. I think among us, there are also teachers who teach stateless children, who help them go through the school system, because there is a process, but you have to pay an extra fee, especially at the moment. The policy is if you have one citizen parent, you can apply into public schools. So, but you have to pay an extra fee. So a lot of them manage to go to school, and a lot of them do very well. Sadly, after they finish their school, access to further education is very limited unless you actually have some of your own funds, because you don't have access to public education and all that. Yeah, so just to share with you, because sometimes when people talk about statelessness, they think of someone really far away and somebody very different, but they're actually one of us. And the Federal Constitution Amendment that's happening in February, which is next month, is only going to affect Malaysian families. Sadly, when this is reported in the news, they make it sound very national security, that it's illegal immigrants trying to take citizenship, but it's not. It's Malaysian families that will be affected. And in Sabah, the indigenous peoples will be most affected, because I don't know if you realize, when I just gave a talk in Pakos last month, when I asked them, it was a training for community leaders from all over Sabah. indigenous communities. When I asked them who here has members in your village who is indigenous and has problems with their citizenship, almost all of them raised their hands. So it's a very, very common problem. Citizenship is a very common problem, even in our indigenous communities who are purely indigenous. And then you also have mixed marriages. And all of this is caught up in our very complicated citizenship laws. Okay, so today I'm going to talk, before I start, citizenship is actually a very legalistic issue. Is anyone here, how many lawyers are here? Hands up. I know the speaker, Priscilla is a lawyer. Who else? No. Okay, so Amy, we have to cut down on the legal stuff. Okay, Amy is also here today. She's a legal student, so she's going to help me with the legal stuff because I don't know legal stuff. Yeah, so we will have to cut down a bit on the legalistic stuff. But actually, if you go internationally, when you go for a statelessness conference, at least half of them are lawyers. So it's a very legalistic issue. Okay, so proposed constitutional amendment on citizenship. Okay, this is the overview. Okay, so what is statelessness? In terms of international law, so the Convention on Statelessness, which Malaysia didn't sign, we only signed 3 out of the 9 human rights conventions. We are one of the country with the lowest ratifications of human rights, conventions. So we didn't sign this, but it states that a person is stateless if the person is not considered a national of a country by operation of its law. So if the law says you are not a citizen of any of the country that your mother or your father is part of, then you are stateless. Okay? And so categories of stateless persons. So arrive or born before Independence Day or Malaysia Day. And then we have, this one is the one I talked to you about just now, gender discriminatory nationality law, where children born abroad to a Malaysian mother. If you are a Malaysian woman and you give birth overseas, sorry, your child won't get automatic citizenship. Okay, so we had a legal case which led to the Federal Constitution amendments and then children born out of wedlock to a Malaysian father. We are one of only 2 countries in the world who doesn't allow for a father to pass on citizenship to the child, us and Barbados. So that says a lot about us as a country, right? So foundling or abandoned babies, according to our law, we're supposed to give them citizenship, but we're not, mostly not. Stateless adopted children. So if you adopt someone who's stateless, mobile or semi-nomadic communities. So we have the Bajau Laut communities who are at the sea. They are not confined by borders. They are purely indigenous people. So when we talk about indigenous people, and the definition of indigenous is you are very distinct in terms of your cultural practices. So the Bajau Laut community is so indigenous, so unique, yet none of us want to. We claim them during Lepak-Lepak festival, like, oh yeah, Sabah is so amazing, we have all this culture, but then in citizenship, sorry, you cannot have public health care, you cannot have early childhood vaccination, you cannot have education. Okay, so that's us. High risk of statelessness, not really stateless, but high risk indigenous communities I talked to you about, and then multi-generational migrants. Yes?
Arrived born before Independence Day or Malaysia Day.
Yes.
Independence Day, what is Malaysia Day?
Amy, can you elaborate?
That's Merdeka.
So it's the independence for Malaya.
So if you are born in Sabah before 63, then you are not, then you are a stateless person, is it?
Because these are categories in Malaysia, so we are counting West Malaysia.
Okay, so I'm just saying, following the Malaysia Day, if you are born, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Sabah before Malaysia Day, before September. Then you are not then you are a stateless person. That's what you're saying there.
Is that what you mean there?
Alright, or born before. Before.
Yeah.
It should be after.
Yeah, after, right? Sorry, yeah. So this is actually Amy's slide. She did all the work. She's more familiar. Yeah, so it's after. Actually, if you are born before Independence Day or Malaysia Day, by our laws, you're supposed to be a citizen now. But we realize our indigenous peoples that we will show you the news later. Some of them did not get the citizenship according to what is actually promised during our independence lah. Okay, so what are the challenges and struggles that stateless person go through? Access to healthcare. So public healthcare. So if you remember before the COVID outbreak, there was a polio outbreak here. Remember? Yeah, and it was because a lot of our children, especially those who are stateless, are not vaccinated. They didn't have their childhood vaccination. So if you talk to the healthcare people, I think I see. We have medical doctors here, right? We actually lost our herd immunity to a lot of diseases already, right? Pertussis and a lot of, so polio happened because a lot of children were unvaccinated, and it actually came from, the outbreak happened in the Philippines, and then it spread to Sabah. Yeah. Okay, so, yes, yeah. So access to education. So they cannot, if your parent is not at least one citizen, you cannot access public schools. You can go to private schools if you have money, or you have people like Dr. Catherine who provides alternative education to children. And even though they are doing this good work of providing alternative education, a lot of them have been harassed to shut down. Yeah. So even though they give education and trying to solve these children who are on the streets, not having education, they're also being shut down by the education department. Access to financial services, to have your own bank, to move around freely because of the fear of arrest. So they usually have to have money in their pockets. So if they go to a checkpoint, they have to pay so they can pass. And you cannot even get married. Okay? Okay, so current situation in Sabah, we have the highest number of stateless persons that it's not even documented in our, like if you talk about statelessness, the UNHCR, High Commission of Refugees, is the mandate holder for statelessness in the world lah. And in Malaysia, they only document peninsular stateless, which are those of the in plantations, the Indian community in plantations. They don't even state Sabah population there because it's high, and we don't have data because usually, it's really hard lah to document. Actually, the UN country team did a study recently. I'm still waiting for the data. Yeah, so we have a high stateless population. Our census, 3.4 million. So out of that, 23.7, so almost one fourth, is non-citizens, which include stateless persons. So our estimate, it's not based on proper studies, but our estimate is around 300,000 children, and a lot of them are stateless lah. So I did my master's also on legal identity for children, and my current PhD journey is also on children in plantation. So I do a lot of data stuff. Yeah, so this is the closest that we can get to lah. Okay, so what are the proposed federal constitution amendments on citizenship, which will happen next month, okay? So you all know the federal constitution, right? It's the highest law of the land. So when Malaysia was formed, it was formed based on this. No, like this is the law that we have that governs the whole country. And when we formed Malaysia, as Sabah, we also had our what's that? We wanted our for the MA63, right? So we also put in stuff there to protect Sabahans. Okay, so later I'll go into that. But this one, Amy is more familiar. So Amy, can I invite you to the front? Because Amy is studying in Peninsula, so a lot of the national level meetings and all that she attends on behalf of ANAK. So luckily, she's here today. She just came yesterday. So yeah, I'll pass the floor to her for a bit.
My name is Amy Marissa. I'll be talking about the proposed constitutional amendment. So, just like Anne mentioned earlier, it came from the Suryani Kempe case, which is part of Family Frontier's advocacy journey. So this is basically where Malaysian mothers married to foreign spouses who give birth abroad, overseas, they are unable to confer citizenship to their children. So it's on also on the basis of equality. Why can't Malaysian women have this equal opportunity as Malaysian men to confer citizenship to the children? So that's why they basically sued the government. And now the case, they brought it up the way to federal court. So now it's on appeal. And I think this case started even pre-pandemic. So it's been maybe 4 years of mothers fighting for equal rights. And because of this case, Family Frontiers did a lot of great advocacy work. They reached out to MPs, politicians, doesn't matter from which party. They reached out to all of them to try and convince all the MPs to basically amend the constitution, giving mothers equal citizenship rights. So because of this, because of their great work, the cabinet basically agreed to amend the federal constitution for this. So it's under Article 14. Now it says Bapa. So constitutional said only fathers can change. So now they want to change to Ibu Bapa, basically parents lah. So cabinet agree. As you can see there, Anwar holding a plaque. Basically, he knows about the issue. He knows about this advocacy, but now that he's the prime minister, he probably has some more worries, maybe more issues to do. So that happened. The cabinet agreed, and then KDN, the Home Ministry, last year in June 2023, they called CSOs, lawyers, organizations to come and give, they were going to give a briefing about proposed amendments. So from this taklimat, basically, they came up with 8 amendments, so 8 changes to the constitution, 3 new additions that they want to add in, and also 4 repeals. So 4 things that they want to take away from the constitution. So that's basically it of the timeline. And then the next one. So like Anne said, it's quite legalistic. We have to go into each section explaining what exactly the changes are. It can be a bit technical, can be a bit boring, can be a bit long. So I'll explain to you as a lay person as possible. I'll start with the good amendment. So the good amendment is basically from the Family Frontiers case where they would change and allow Malaysian mothers to pass down citizenship to the children. So this is quite clear-cut. It's basically promised by the government. It's years and years of advocacy. So this is one great thing that they promised. And moving on to the bad amendments. But basically, this is the amendments that they're proposing. So to amend the word father to parents, and this can be found in section 14(1)(b). See, very, very legalistic. And then the 8 amendments also include some administrative processes. And also, they're limiting it to 1 generation to pass on citizenship. So this is quite technical. I won't go too in detail, but basically the gist of it is to allow mothers to confer citizenship. And the next one is we call them the bad regressive amendments that KDN is proposing. So these are our objections to some of the proposed amendments. And basically, I passed around some flyers just now. Those, I didn't put the sections, but I just put it in just like a normal language to understand basically what it's about. But section 19B basically allows abandoned babies, foundling children. So like these are like kids, not kids, but babies you find who are like dumped on the street, babies who are found like in an open space. So these are like basically abandoned children. There's actually a safeguard in the Constitution by operation of law to allow these children to get basically citizenship. But now they want to change operation of law to registration. So when it was basically automatic for this foundling, this abandoned baby to become a citizen, it is now under registration. So you have to apply to get citizenship. And this is quite, why we object to this is basically, can you imagine a baby just found on the street, just with a cloth in a basket or in a box, right? How can you find its origins? Like how do you know who this baby belongs? So there's a lot of real life technicalities that it's very, very hard to determine where these children is actually from. And in the Constitution already, there is that safeguard saying that if this child is found in an open space, the mother is presumed to be a permanent resident of the state. So there's already that safeguard. But now KDN basically wants to take away this safeguard, just in short. And the next section that they want to change is, now I guess most of us here in this room who have IC, I believe you are born and automatically you get IC. So it's by operation of law, meaning your IC, your citizenship cannot ditarik balik because you didn't register for it, you didn't apply for it. It's automatic, it's your right. And now under this section, usually now it's citizen and permanent resident. When you give birth in Malaysia, you can confer citizenship. So the rights is expanded for citizens and permanent resident. So permanent resident is basically my PR, kad merah. So kad IC biru and IC merah basically can pass on citizenship if you are legally married. So it's like what Anne said. But now they want to take away the word permanent resident. This, honestly, when I went to the meeting, they say it's because of Sabah issue that they want to take this. And apparently they talked to some Sabah government person and this is what they suggested. So why we think that this is very detrimental, like Anne said just now, some indigenous person hold IC merah. And now, because they have this provision, anak dorang semua pun boleh jadi Sabahan, boleh jadi Malaysian. But once you take this away, what happens to the indigenous community who only hold IC merah and cannot pass down citizenship and who don't have any other citizenship? You are putting more children at risk and you are taking away rights that are already safeguarded in the Constitution. So that's why we think it's quite problematic. And the third one is basically to remove operation of law to registry. So kind of like the first opposed one, where it's a removal of a statelessness safeguard in the Constitution. So this one also very legalistic. Basically this section, since there's no lawyers in the room, but basically this section is what, when lawyers want to bring a case in court, this is the section that they use. So macam, let's say if you have an adopted child who's stateless, you can go to court, you can fight for citizenship. Or let's say if you are a foundling baby, you want to go to fight for citizenship, you can use this section in court to try and fight for your rights lah. And basically, lawyers oppose this because now then the numbers of people trying to fight for their rights will decrease. And this safeguard that has been there since 1963 is being removed. Okay?
So this is the one that is under our Malaysian agreement. So we actually, Sabah put that in place to protect the rights, but they're taking that away, that safeguard away.
Yeah, so that's, and we also see that if you take this away, Malaysia will be like a national pride because why are you depriving and taking away existing rights already there to safeguard for the best interest of the children lah. The fourth one, I won't really talk about it because it's quite complicated. And the last one is basically to reduce the age limit from 21 years old to 18 years old. Like in the Constitution, it's quite standardized. Everything, the age is 21 years old. And let's say there's this provision where if you're a stateless person, you want to apply for citizenship, you can apply under Article 15A. So this is when children until the age of 21 years old can apply for citizenship. And now they want to reduce the age from 21 to 18. And we see this as detrimental because those 3 years are actually very, I would say, very important lah, because we know that when you apply for citizenship, it's not like, okay, you'll get your results in 1 year, 2 years. That's what they say lah, okay, like just wait 1 year, 2 years, maybe your results will come. But in reality, it takes 5, 10, 12 years to come. So imagine if I apply when I was 15, I get my results when I'm 19. And if they do this amendment, I'm 19 now and I've been applying since I was 15. Now, what other choices do I have? Because I don't have any other avenue. And especially when the safeguard is removed, I can't go to court. I can't bring my case to court. So will I just be in Malaysia just trying to live a life like a ghost? You know, so these are all the realities of why we oppose the amendments, because the real life effects of it is quite detrimental, not just to all, everyone lah. And that's basically it. The next few slides, I won't go into detail because, like I said again, it's very legalistic. But you can see this is like the provision I said earlier. So by operation of law, it's citizen and permanent resident. So now they want to remove the word permanent resident to only citizens. Yeah. And yeah. So it's actually, it's before Malaysia Day. Yeah. And then this is the one on the marriage. This is the other, this is the one for the foundling. So basically, you see, any newborn child found exposed in any place shall presume to be basically a citizen of that country until the contrary is shown to have been born there by mother who is a permanent resident. So now they want to take this out and change it to by registration. And this is the article that I was talking about just now, Article 15A. So a person under the age of 21 can apply to register, but now they want to change it to 18. And the reason why 18 is like undi 18 lah. They kind of basically want to standardize everything to 18 years old. And they were giving examples of like in the US and the UK, everything is 18 years old. But we think when it comes to citizenship, those 3 years are quite precious. Let's say if you get your result at 19, you can still apply before 21. And it gives you maybe another shot at citizenship line. And that also, you apply 19, maybe you get your results at 27, 29, 28, or something like that. We really don't know the time as well. And the new amendment is basically a clause to angkat sumpah. It's very straightforward. We don't have any objection there. It's quite understandable for loyalty to the country and to the king. And the 3 repeal amendment, so 3 over 4 of it is basically not relevant. It's for like pre-independence context, very not relevant anymore. And then the third one is basically just now where the section that lawyers use to fight in court, they want to take it out. So yeah, this is just basically the section that they want to take out. And that's all for my part. I will pass it back to Anne.
So I'm not so sure if you are familiar with because what KDN is telling our when they did the briefing to our MPs, they actually say, no, we're not like not giving them citizenship. We're just giving them another way of getting citizenship, which is through by registration. They didn't explain that by registration means what one case that we have recently, Wong Quang Hui, if you know him, he's from Keningau, father Chinese, mother Indonesian, but abandoned at birth. His case took 16 years. So basically, on average, a citizenship application, which can be done in JPN, it's a normal process. It takes, on average, when we check with all the NGOs who does citizenship application, it takes about, on average, 5 years for one citizenship application. And then after that, they say, tidak berjaya. So you apply again and you wait another 5 years. And you wait again another 5 years, rejected. And then if somebody is kind enough, especially in your financial situation, especially as a stateless person, you don't get much economic opportunities. If some kind lawyer does your case pro bono, you can bring it to court. And that takes another how many years? No? Like I think Wong maybe 5-6 years. So that is what it means by registration. And not everybody, majority of stateless person doesn't have means to legal representation. Yeah? So basically so they're saying, so in that 16 years of application, you don't have rights to anything as well. Education, healthcare. So basically, as Amy said, you live a life of a ghost. No, because everything here, they ask for your IC, you realize or not? Malaysia has a we like to ask people to show our identification documents. When I was in US as a child, as long as you're a child, you can go to school. You don't have to show any documents. So we like, I don't know why, but we like documents. So that is what we mean by registration. Okay, so how does it impact Sabah? Some of it is, we have a high number. So this guy, he's Lundayet. His parents were also IC Merah. Both of them, red IC, permanent residents, but they are both Lundayet. They were here actually pre-independence, so by law they're supposed to have citizenship, but they were given red IC instead. So they are purely indigenous. So he has been applying for many years, but he has been rejected many times. He hasn't brought this to court yet, probably doesn't have the financial means for it. So if they take away that word permanently resident, then he will have no chance because he's still fighting. And he was saying, I really hate it when people ask me, because his children are already citizens. He married a citizen, so because he's a permanent resident and the wife is a citizen, they were able to pass on citizenship to the child. But when he said this, he said his friends asked him, like, why do you want to apply for citizenship? Your children are already citizens. He's like, during elections, all my friends go out to vote. why don't I have the right? No, like I'm an indigenous person. I'm a Malaysian. Now why should I not have my citizenship? No, so this, I just met him recently. This was in December, and there's still many other people in this situation in his village. And then also the federal constitution amendments. All of these conversations are happening in Peninsula, right? And they keep on saying it's because of Sabah. It's because of Sabah. Sadly, in Sabah, there's no conversations here. We're like in the blind. But apparently, they're trying to make these amendments because of Sabah. And then they said to solve this issue of statelessness, when in reality, they're taking away 5, which means it is taking, it's going to make the situation worse. It's going to make citizenship, access to citizenship even more narrow. Okay. So what we are part of the Malaysian Citizenship Rights Alliance. We are the only Sabahan NGO there. Sadly, because the issue is such a big issue, but we're the only ones there. And we are made up of only 2.5 staff. so 2 full-time and one part-time. Okay, so Amy is a volunteer. Yeah. So what we're trying to tell them is split the amendments to focus on the mother's issue only. Because that has already, the mother's issue has already went through the court process. It has been debated. It has gone through a thorough process to see that this is the right, like this is what's supposed to happen. While the other amendments went through a 3 months research and did not, they said that they consulted the Sabah government, but they consulted only 3 NGOs, and all of them are in Klang Valley. Okay, the 3 NGOs, none in Sabah, none in Sarawak. And Sarawak also have a lot of issues of statelessness in their indigenous communities. So we're saying, split it, go ahead with the mother's amendments, but the others, the 5 regressive ones, please do a more thorough research. Please consult Sabahans, not only the state government, but also NGOs or people, communities, indigenous communities, people on the ground, so that it can be, whatever decision is made can be the best decision. And so that is our ask for this. So what we have done, we have met with the Parliamentary Select Committee of Women and Children Affairs on Social Development. So ANAK was represented there. So they gave us 5 seats for NGOs. So 3 of them are Peninsula NGOs. Thankfully, the Peninsula NGOs gave 1 seat to Sabahan and 1 seat to Sarawak. ANAK was there. We had a stateless person represented there also. So that was a proud moment for a stateless person to talk about their own situation. No? And then we also had the Parliamentary Select Committee on Women and Children and Human Rights. And also KDN and JPN officials, because when we had that meeting, they were saying like, okay, KDN is not here, so we cannot give you the answer. So let's do another meeting where KDN is there and you all can debate with each other, they were saying. So they had the following meeting. Did I take up a lot of time already? Okay, this is finishing soon. So for that meeting, they actually reduced our seats. So at first they said 2 persons per NGO. The second one, they said only 1 person per NGO. So yeah, but ANAK was represented there also. So we tried to represent the Sabah issue as much as possible. And then we had the press conference and engagement with all these people. But Sabah, we haven't managed to get even 1 appointment with any of the MPs here. We had like 1 close one where Iwan actually said yes, and then on that day itself he said, postpone, but indefinitely. So we didn't manage to talk to any Sabahan MPs. Okay, and they're saying that they're making the amendments because of Sabah, but we are not represented. So if you know any MPs, please get us an appointment, please. So okay, so what's happening next? So it will happen in February. The parliament, during the next parliament sitting, this will take place in February. So our MPs, our member of parliaments, will be voting for this. That's why we need to speak to them, because when Iwan came up with a statement, he said that it won't affect Sabah at all. And clearly we see that it does. No, so we need to explain, because when KDN explained this to the member of parliaments, they're saying, no, this is to resolve the statelessness issue, and they make everything sound, it's like to protect this national security and all that lah. Their usual narrative. So the reality is not clear. Even when we talk to the Parliamentary Select Committee, they don't know like what actually. So they said, no, KDN has an answer for that. And everything that, everything that they, the answers, then we had to explain to them, no, by registration means this. And then they were saying, like this country has this. And then when we checked, actually those countries that KDN presented, it's not accurate. The law doesn't state what KDN presented. So there's a lot of inaccuracies there, so we need to talk to them, those who are going to vote. So this one, Amy, what's this?
How the amendments have to be.
So basically, because it's a federal amendment to the federal constitution, it has to go through the Conference of Rulers. What's the in BM again? Majlis Raja-Raja, right? So for constitutional amendment in relation to citizenship, the Conference of Rulers must approve first before tabling in Parliament. So we don't know, we don't have proof, but KDN minister said the Conference of Rulers has approved, but we don't have any proof of that right yet. So we're asking for all this proof. And even when we had a meeting in the Parliamentary Select Committee, because they said we want to take away the PR because there's a lot of people in Sabah who is getting citizenship through PR. So we're asking them, where's your data? Can we have the data? If that's true, they don't have the data. So even Yobiyin, who chairs the Parliamentary Select Committee, she was saying, what? So you are making these amendments based on what data? So they weren't able to give us any data, no? And this is in a Parliamentary Select Committee setting. So moving forward, please talk about it to everyone everywhere, especially to the Member of Parliament. Please get us an appointment. So reach out to, this Abang Adik movie, if you realize this is in the cinemas now, it's about situation of statelessness as well. And we also have a conference happening end of February. Another thing is we're trying to get an appointment we're trying to get Suhakam to convene the meeting with the Member of Parliaments. So Suhakam Sarawak has done this. They've already convened their Member of Parliaments there and they've already given the briefing. The CSOs have already given a briefing. Sabah has not. Okay, so even when I went to Suhakam, this was brushed off also. They were saying, no, Child Commissioner is looking into this, and it's not happening anytime soon. And I was like, that time it was supposed to be tabled in October. And I said, yeah, but it's next month. Table next month. Yeah, not anytime soon. Suhakam was telling me. So even Suhakam, we're still trying to convince Suhakam to convene this meeting of Member of Parliaments in Sabah. When Sarawak has already done it, Peninsula has already done it, so Sabah is left behind as usual. So that's our frustration. Okay, done. Thank you very much.
It's so cold. To be fair to me, I was given 1 hour notice. I was happily doing my work with Datu, Josibosi, and Dulce in Ilman, and then I get a call from my good friend. Since we are good friends, I said, okay, I'll come. So I'm going to speak from, from this table. I don't have any preparation, but I understand from David that it is about children's rights and statelessness. So there are 2 issues, right? Children's rights and people with no citizenship. Is that correct? Statelessness. Okay. So I got a piece of paper. I was just jotting it down just now. So I will narrow down it to children's rights. So if we are talking about children's rights, I would just summarize it this way. Children has the right to have a name. They have a right to have access to education. They have a right access to health. They have a right to have a religion. And they have a right to have a voice. My background, so I'm a lawyer. Somebody just reminded me I'm an old woman because I have been around for 40 years I have been practicing for 40 years, but I'm still poor. But somebody mentioned about Kurup. I have a legal firm. My partners are Tan Sri Joseph Kurup, Datu Atta Kurup, and Datu Haja Mareti Rabat. So I'm a dusun, I'm a native, I'm married, I'm happily married, I'm a grandmother. So I think I have a little bit of experience talking about, let me see, what is the title now? Children's Rights. Children's Rights. I'm a grandma. And then there are two issues here actually. Children's rights, and the second one is they use the word statelessness. Statelessness means tiada warga negara. Is that correct? So two different issues. So I'm going to say what are the children's rights. So as I said, children must have a right to have a name, to have an education, to have access to health, to have a right to profess a religion, and to have the right to have a voice. Children's rights. And then the next issue, no citizenship. Statelessness means tiada warga negara. Isn't that what it means? Statelessness. So, how did it happen that they don't have a citizenship or a warga negara? Kan? So, who are they? Are they abandoned children? So I assume that if they don't have citizenship, that means they are abandoned. If they are abandoned, there is this act called the Child Akta Kanak-Kanak. So in my practice, when you have abandoned children, usually probably children are young girls who got pregnant probably, and they just give birth in a bush, that's the classic definition when a child is stateless, abandoned children. So in Malaysia, we have we have laws that deals with children's rights. It's called the Child Act. The Child Act says that person must have a name, must have first of all, must have a name, then must have a citizenship. So if you want to solve the problem about tiada warga negara, no citizenship, stateless. So if they are abandoned, then they are surely without a citizenship, isn't it? So I have dealt with cases like this, and the people that have the right to deal with this, to solve this, is the Kabajikan. The Akta Kanak-Kanak, the Child Act, placed the power and the responsibility in the Kabajikan, the welfare department, to solve this problem. So if you remember, many years ago, I think like 40 years ago, there was this huge, what do you call that? Flood called the La Nina, is it? La Nina, kan? So I had an experience. There was this baby, the mother got drowned, but they managed to save the baby. So I adopted that child. She is now happily married. She is in Japan. So I had the personal experience of how to deal with such situation. The child is abandoned, no name, no race, no religion. So at that time, belum lagi ada itu Child Act. It was actually something like, because the Child Act only came in place in 2001, but the principle is the same. So, said children's rights, stateless. So when a child is abandoned, you have to, the authority that has the power is the welfare department. So what happened is the welfare department will take care of the baby. They place them in a place, kebajikan, but they will look for a lawyer. I mean, the baby has to be adopted, right? The baby has to be adopted. So usually, because I had the advantage of having my brother as the director of welfare services, so I have dealt with so many abandoned babies. So what happened is when they have an abandoned baby, the kebajikan has the power, the welfare department. So we go to court. We apply for a court order to have this child adopted. So in my case, I did that for my daughter. So we went under the Child Act. So because when you are adopting a child, the child must have a father and a mother, right? So it's the father and the mother that would sign the consent to the adoption. But if the child is abandoned, there is nobody to sign the consent. So it has to be by the welfare department. And then welfare department, the lawyer, and the judge. So there are three persons that are responsible for solving the problem. So when the child is adopted, he will have a name, and his citizenship will follow the citizenship of the adoptive parents. But if they are adopted in Malaysia, they must be Malaysian. You cannot have a Filipino or an Indonesian applying for a court order in Malaysia and saying this child is Indonesian. If you want that child to be Indonesian, you go back to Indonesia and adopt the child in Indonesia. But then how do you bring the child when the child has no paper? How do you fly? How do you go into the airplane? So all the children that are found here, abandoned here, has to be adopted in this country. In the same case when you are in Indonesia, if you are Indonesia or Philippines or America, they do the adoption there. But my point is, there is always a solution for stateless children. Because the title is statelessness. So you don't want the child to be stateless, right? Let me see. She talked about the federal constitution, but I think I have already mentioned about the children's rights. It's basically universal. It's the same in every country. That they must have a name, they must have a nationality, they must have access to education, health, they must have a voice, they must have they have a right to have a religion. And okay, statelessness. Statelessness means how did they become stateless? Are they abandoned?
Because of time constraint, can be
to
the question and answer.
Okay. What is it?
We proceed to the question and answer. You have to answer the...
Okay. So I just want to share my experience because maybe because I was very vocal, so I was spotted by some people. So I had the experience of appearing at the UN under an entity, a Catholic entity called Franciscan International. So I have been to Geneva, New York, and Nairobi. There are 3 United Nations. I didn't know there was a 3rd United Nation in Nairobi. I was quite a sampalau lah. Then when I went there, oh, ada pula. So, but anyway, statelessness, there is always a solution under the Child Act, abandoned children. Apalagi ya?